90.7 FM.
When I'm in Portland,
news
from KBOO.
check it for 90.7 KBOO for real.
Gary, take one.
My name is Gary Baysinger. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Swingin' Country program, which, yes, I got the shirt. Outside of KBOO, I work for a restoration company, which means if you have a fire or flood or a car drives into your building, we're the people you call. That's what I do for a living. What I do for fun, I am an author. I've published 3 books. I'm also, starting in September, I'm going to be co-hosting Between the Covers every other month. Okay, well, I'm on the Swingin' Country program, which is on every Saturday from 6 to 9 a.m. And it's not my program. We have a collective. There's 5 different hosts, and I do the 5th Saturday. So whenever there are 5 Saturdays in the month, I'll take the 5th Saturday. So I didn't start the program. I joined KBOO in 2013 and started hosting a show in 2015 when Henry Moggy stepped down. I just look at it as, we have a couple commercial country music stations here. This is the stuff you would not hear on those stations. My own particular wheelhouse, I guess, would be, I grew up listening to a lot of country music in the 70s, so I play a lot of that, but I played a little bit of everything, but that's kind of the stuff that I grew up with, that kind of vibe they've got going on. I kind of picked that out. Music is an organic thing, whether it's country music or rock and roll or jazz. It's always changing. Country music has a reputation for being traditional, maybe a little hidebound. We're not going to change, and people adopt kind of a purist attitude. I don't really look at it that way. I just listen to it and say, do I like it? Does it sound good? There's a lot of stuff that came out, when I was a kid in the 70s that I really liked, and that vibe or that energy, that spirit, it went somewhere. The music changed, and what they were calling country music all became a little bit different, because it's organic, it's changing, but that spirit kind of went in different places to like maybe alternative country or roots rock or Americana, and that's where it goes. I've always been a music nut ever since I was a kid, and if I hear something that I like this artist, like, who were they influenced by? And then I'll start getting in, oh, these guys are good too, or they, and I'm just down this rabbit hole. I listened to that music when I was a kid, because the radio was always on in our house, and my dad played a lot of it. And I got away from it when I was a teenager, but started getting back into it like maybe 20 or 30 years later, and was looking for a radio station that would play the stuff that I remembered, the stuff that I liked. Tried out some of the local stations, I don't even know what they're called, and I just dialed up and put it on my car radio for a couple of weeks, and I was like, this is terrible. I don't know what this is. And then one day I heard this Swingin' Country program on Saturday morning. I was driving my son to a soccer game, a kid's soccer game, and KBOO on, and I was like, this is what I remember listening to. This is the stuff that I like. And then I became a fan of the show. And I was listening to that probably for a few years. And I don't know what came over me. I just was listening one day and I said, I think I could do that. I think I know enough about country music that I could do a show like that. I've never been on the radio before, but I think I could do it. So I came down here and I volunteered. And that was in 2013. And like 2 years later, a spot came open and I got a show. And the people on the Swingin' Country Collective were very helpful. When I showed up and said I was interested in doing the program, they actually started giving me some time on their shows to come in and do my thing. As I remember when I first came down there and I did all the training, and which takes a little time, and they said, okay, wait, now you can go do a show. I thought, you're gonna allow me to go on the radio and do whatever I want for a couple hours? Yeah, like, you're crazy. You just met me. Yeah, you'll be fine. So yeah, a lot of trust they're placing in the host, but yeah, I haven't screwed it up yet. I like the fact that KBOO will give a voice to things that you wouldn't normally hear, especially on commercial radio. I can come back to my point of I was trying to find music that I liked, a particular kind of music, and I wasn't hearing it on the commercial stations. So I think they fill a lot of small little niches that probably you wouldn't find anywhere else, because somebody's saying, okay, that's not a commercially viable product, we're not going to put it out there, but there's an audience for that. And there's a lot of good stuff out there, whether it's public affairs or music that needs to get out there, because I think it's good quality stuff. Just because something is commercially successful doesn't necessarily mean it's the best quality. It's like, this is kind of the lowest common denominator stuff that people, it's like junk food, in a way. And whereas I think KBOO is more of like, no, we're going to get into the meat and potato stuff, the real stuff. That's maybe got some more integrity, or maybe will last a little longer or stay with you a little longer. A lot of KBOO is like, we're going to put stuff out there that we're going to kind of take a chance on this stuff. Well, I've done the Blues Festival a few times, done anchoring down there. And, that's always a lot of fun. But just in general, when I do the swing and country program, it's Saturday morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. So when I come down here, there's not always, but sometimes there's nobody here because nobody's coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning, or there may be just a few people. So I didn't always get a chance to see people. I always kind of liked doing the pledge drives because they'd come down there and there'd be a whole bunch of people right here in this room. And I'm like, I get to meet some of the other volunteers and work alongside them. That's an excellent question. I think it's good to have a diversity of opinions, or a diversity of, opinions that are broadcast out to the world, to the community. I personally like the freedom that I can come here on Saturday. Like I said, I can come in and play whatever I want. I'm gonna play this, I'm gonna play that. Nobody sent me a sheet saying play these songs because these are the popular ones. Don't play this one because it's gonna upset people. There is nobody in no corporate headquarters in New York or Los Angeles telling us what to do. So I think community radio is a good way to get out programs that you normally wouldn't hear, and play things, music, or even public affair programs that you wouldn't hear anywhere else. And it's organic, This is the local community here getting together, saying that this is what we want. We're willing to get behind that, which is a great thing. As opposed to somebody looking at the Nielsen ratings, or the Arbitron ratings, and saying, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. Again, we come back to that issue of like, well, what's the quality of the stuff that you're putting out there? Because, if you listen, if you ever listen to commercial radio, there's a certain sameness to it. Like this is kind of the same thing as what I heard on this other station. Give me something a little different, something a little more interesting. Something maybe it's got some rough edges on it. Somebody sitting in that booth over there doing the show, they're going to make mistakes. You do a 2-hour show, something's going to get screwed up, something's going to be right. And that's fine. It's okay. It's not, this is a real person that's doing this and doing it live. Well, I think that KBOO is a little more well positioned to deal with the lack of funding from CPB. My understanding is we get a portion of our funding. It's going to make things a challenge financially just to keep it going. We're going to have to rely more on our listeners, more on the community. Which there's a part of me that says maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we get away from having to rely on government funding. It's great, but as we just learned, like it's not always going to be there. And I think it gives you a little more freedom of feeling, well, this is just what we want to do out here, and this is what we're going to do here in Portland, Oregon, and we don't need anybody else telling us what to do. Just the idea that people are coming in saying we want to cut this funding, that's just a reflection on where are we at as a society. We're not going to support a station like this or other community stations who I think are providing a valuable resource. To say, well, we're going to cut this because it's going to save. It's going to save a little bit of money, but you look at the overall picture of the budget, like it's a small portion of it. And it's more like somebody's making a political statement, like, well, what's your statement? You don't like community radio? Why not? It's a very grassroots thing. It's very bottom up. Why do you not like it? Well, we don't agree with their opinions. Like, well, okay, but again, that's more of a statement about you than it is about us. You can't take a little criticism. KBOO is putting out content, ideas, thoughts, and opinions that maybe are not in the mainstream. But that's all they are. They're just thoughts and ideas. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of them. You should be. You might not agree with them, and you can even argue with somebody about who's right and who's wrong. but put it out there, you know, and just see what people have to say. But to say, well, I just don't even want to hear it. Like, well, okay, then we come back to that whole thing about music being bland. Like, wasn't just the general mainstream thought just become bland? Nothing interesting, nothing out of this very narrow way of thinking. Is that how we should all function? Because who wants to live in a world like that? I don't. The idea that there are people out there that are going to put out ideas you don't agree with, and it may seem radical to you, but it's important that they're out there, that we have a diversity of thought, a diversity of opinions on a number of topics. So I think it's healthy, you know, to have that intellectual discourse about, you know, what do you think about this issue? But that applies to all of us, right? I mean, we're all here at KBOO. I would think people here, and maybe I shouldn't assume that, but the ideology is somewhat progressive. People would describe it as left-wing, whatever name you want to put on it. But I think it's important even for us to sit down and say, I'm going to listen to somebody whose opinion I don't agree with, and just to hear what they have to say. And it might piss you off. Or you might think there might be something in there saying, okay, I see where they're coming from. I don't agree with I don't agree with where they landed as far as their stance on a particular issue, but I see where they're coming from. And I would hope that people who don't share a similar opinion are looking to us saying, like, okay, I'm going to listen to what you guys have to say, just to hear what you have to say and get a different perspective on things. So America's a big place. There's a lot of diversity of thought. Radio has always been important in my life. There was a period of my life from age 8 to age 14 where we didn't have television. Where the community where I lived, there was no television. All we had was radio. And we had one radio station that did everything. So it kind of reminds me of KBOO. They did the news, they did music, they played sports games. We always had the radio on because that was our thing. That was our ear to the world, so to speak. So just me personally, radio has always been a huge part of my life. I enjoy coming down here to be a part of KBOO and putting some programming out there, and that's why I think it's important. It's a good way to tap into things you normally wouldn't be able to tap into.